Hurricane Melissa has caused up to $7 billion in damage to Jamaica. Thousands have lost their homes. Nearly 2 million have been affected, which is actually half of Jamaica's population. And yet tourism is expected to restart by December 15, according to the government. How fast can Jamaica really recover? Who's paying for this? And how can you support Jamaica in the coming months? Hi, I'm Lily Gurma, travel journalist, if you're new here, and I've been reporting on conscious tourism as well as the Caribbean and Jamaica for many years throughout my career, covering sustainable tourism for the most part across the north, the west, in Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, and the south coast, White House, Bluefields. All of these are communities that I know, and it hits really close to home. In this video, I want to share 5 critical things that you should know. The devastation is absolutely massive. I'm sure you've seen it in the news, so I do not need to repeat it here. But Melissa really exposed what rising climate vulnerability really looks like for the Caribbean many years after Hurricane Maria, which devastated Puerto Rico and other islands. Hurricane Melissa turned into a Category 5 very quickly. Entire communities have lost at least 90% of their structures. Many lost everything they've worked for their entire lives in some of the most vibrant, culture-filled communities of Jamaica. The damage, that's about $1 trillion Jamaican dollars, or 7-8 US billion, roughly what the government spends on the entire country in a normal year. So about 32% of Jamaica GDP. It's about $1 in $3 that Jamaica earns that's been wiped out. And we're talking about communities that were the heart of farming in the south coast, for example, in St. Elizabeth, or in Westmoreland Parish, where tourism thrives, and many inland communities as well that are now cut off. Negril Beach, by miracle, somehow left unscathed from the storm, but many more areas have been affected. Fishers, farmers. I remember visiting back in 2017, Bluefields Organic Farm. That has been completely wiped out. Seeing the images is quite jarring. All of the vegetables, more than 36 types that he'd grown and turned the area into a school for students, is completely wiped out, including the solar panels. But they're resilient and they're continuing to work with their neighbors to survive and thrive again. But how many can really do that in the coming months? Quickly. According to the United Nations, more than 300,000 Jamaicans are now reliant on food donations. Some communities remain cut off a week or 10 days in after the storm and don't have access to water, food. People are saying that aid is not coming fast enough. Others have been receiving aid and moving forward quickly. It's difficult to see what was once thriving green land turn into barren, brown landscapes. And as Shaggy said, a lot of the cultural heritage sites are also damaged or landmarks completely gone. It's not about rebuilding, he said, it's starting over. Of course, there are also a lot of great resilience examples happening in the maroon communities, for example, in Acapulco town, where they have water generators that they've been restarting to help people. Hotels have been housing their workers in some cases, not many that I've heard of, but that's something that I'm tracking. Neighbors are coming together also to share what little they have, but others are also struggling in shelters in parts of Jamaica that authorities have yet to reach. And as aid takes time to get to all of the places and all of the corners that have been hit around Jamaica, it's clear that a hurricane of this magnitude is simply not something that the government was prepared for. Now, there's a lot of debate online about whether or not we should even be talking about tourism restarting right now. But the tourism minister of Jamaica has said that the industry must restart by December 15, which is literally just a few weeks away. The thing is that Jamaica's economy is extremely reliant on tourism. It's been built that way, and it is certainly not going to change overnight. Without it, recovery is going to stall. Farmers, fishers, vendors, the whole supply chain, tour guides, everyone down the chain has lost income right now. Tourism brings in foreign currency and circulation in the local economy. So buying local, spending local, and supporting some of the same farmers, fishers, vendors whose goods have been either destroyed or whose services have been curtailed will certainly help. St. Elizabeth, which is the breadbasket of Jamaica, has been devastated as well. And to imagine tourism not coming back as part of the economic picture, especially with the busy season that's up ahead, is a difficult proposition. What about the people who make tourism what it is, Jamaicans themselves, the staff who've lost their homes, even though the hotels might still be standing? How will they go about their normal lives and their families when they've lost literally everything? Who is going to rebuild their homes and how fast? Will the hotels be providing housing? Because that's something that I've been tracking in the meantime. I've not seen an all-inclusive resort make a pronouncement about that. It also begs the question of whether workers will now be more reliant than ever on all-inclusive resorts, a model that was very much criticized and spotlighted last year during protests because of poor wages and conditions. Not to mention the ongoing development of tourism resorts, which is taking away beaches and also curtailing traditional fishing around Jamaica. Separately, of course, tourism can do absolute good and be a positive contributor when you're choosing right, when you're booking with Jamaican-owned hotels or choosing local businesses and those that are doing well by their employees. That is how tourism becomes part of the recovery story of Jamaica. There's a missing outrage about the climate crisis. As Jamaican-British activist Michaela Loach said recently, these disasters are not natural. Let's stop calling them natural. They are the result of political and corporate choices that have heated the planet and the atmosphere. They've deepened inequality as a result. And storms like Hurricane Melissa, they're supercharged by warmer oceans, more carbon in the air, and decades of fossil fuel emissions, mostly produced by the global north and companies in the global north. So Jamaica and the Caribbean did not cause these types of storms, but they are bearing the brunt of it, even though they are the least responsible for carbon emissions. Yet it is one of the most climate vulnerable regions in the world. Jamaica is set to receive, as you've probably heard by now, a record-breaking $150 million from a catastrophe bond that was triggered by Hurricane Melissa. The bond was arranged by the World Bank, and Jamaica is the first island state to put in such a mechanism in place. The funds are expected to be dispersed within a couple of weeks, and it's been celebrated as a success story. But think about what that really means. It means that climate change is such a risk that Jamaica had to bet on its own destruction for a crisis that it did not cause. And the Caribbean is paying a premium to global insurance markets for disasters that it didn't create. We should be outraged. Perhaps not right now, because right now the focus is on helping Jamaicans survive this monstrous disaster. Babies, children, families who are by their houses without a roof. And the rainy season is not even over yet. And let's remember, just a year ago, Hurricane Beryl had pummeled the South Coast as well, and they just recovered from that, all of these communities on the South Coast. But all of this needs to be said because it is the reality for the Caribbean, and these storms are only going to get worse. What does it mean for our choices as consumers, as travelers, as journalists, as well as people in the industry making decisions? For the people also who love this region, how do we push for policies that benefit Jamaica, that benefit the Caribbean in terms of responsibility for carbon emissions and reparations from this kind of destruction? These are the questions that we need to ask ourselves and our leaders. One of the other questions that's come up is, should you go to Jamaica now? And a lot of local voices are saying that if your trip is already planned for sometime in November or for December, absolutely go yes. And of course, if you're going beyond December as well. Your presence will help the local economy, and just being there, spending local, buying local is going to be a huge boost, not only for Jamaican workers who are now having to rebuild from scratch, but also for the businesses there and for the economy of Jamaica. Should you go right now? Probably just let the support system and the authorities and the NGOs do the work that they need to do to get to all of the communities that they have yet to reach or that they're continuing to feed, so that Jamaicans themselves, who have been helping each other in the most inspiring of ways, can continue to do so. What you can do from where you are here in America and in the global north is to send monetary support as well as in-kind goods that you can ship. So for the general tourist, I would say funnel your donations. I've included a whole list of vetted outlets that you can donate to. Organizations that are on the ground have been doing amazing work, as well as some that I know personally that I support as well. Check it out in the description. And it's okay for us to talk about this and grieve. Jamaica means a lot to many of us. A lot of us know a lot of Jamaicans as well. Personally, I call Jamaica my muse because when I was reinventing my career from lawyer to travel journalist, I saw a side of the country that I was not seeing in media, in the magazines. The sustainable tourism side, the community side, the food, the festivals, the people-to-people connections that I was making. And I decided that that was going to be the type of tourism that I wanted to promote and that I would focus on. And I started out with Jamaica. and my entire career as a travel journalist was steered from that moment. There are even tourism workers that I have not heard from yet that I've been checking with daily because there's still primarily no Wi-Fi or electricity in many parts of the affected areas in Jamaica. In 2026, for sure, I'm also considering going to Jamaica and supporting there as far as telling more stories and connecting with the communities again in the parts that I know and that I've connected with in the past. And let's keep the discussion going. As many of us know, there's already discussion online about what will happen to all of the lands where the houses have been destroyed. People in Puerto Rico, as well as in Barbuda, are telling Jamaicans, do not sell your land, and putting out messages on social media. As we know, Hurricane Maria ushered in Puerto Rico billionaires and other incentives created by the government to sell land to foreigners, particularly coastal lands. It's a bit too early to talk about all of that. Let's keep the focus on the recovery. But it is definitely a discussion that is already happening for Jamaica, and the hope is that that will not happen there. And as reporters, it is our job to keep an eye on these things and report back. My heart goes out to all Jamaicans around the world, and especially those who are in Jamaica who've lost their homes and have been affected. Again, remember, that's nearly half of the population of Jamaica. So please support if you can. Every little bit helps. Thanks for listening.